Hello and welcome to the show. We start this week's Canyon Rally with some mods. Yes, we've got mods working back again as people have updated their various cars to comply with the new powertrain stuff. We start with the ETK S series, a high-powered four-door saloon car. From some angles, some bits of it do kind of remind me of the Charger Hellcat, which is certainly a good thing. I actually think it's a really good looking saloon car, quite a menacing vehicle, this one. And there certainly is plenty of speed in this thing. It is not slow in a straight line, getting up to almost 100 miles an hour before we reach turn 1, although not the most comfortable of landings. The brakes are difficult to work with, shall we say, on this guy. I've been doing a few vehicles where it's been quite nice. This was not nice. Very, very easy to lock stuff up. In the end, on this first run, I was trying to be a little bit brave with my cornering speed and completely and utterly butchered some lines through turns and ended up out in a wrong place. Bounced across a dip, really, and tore the front and spun the car around. Didn't actually do a huge amount of damage to the vehicle, but there we go. Next time, things went spectacularly wrong with the landing of the bridge jump as the car just sort of caught fire. I might have been going a bit quick as I left the jump, or left the ramp. Yeah, there was a lot of fire involved in that one. As we head down towards the first corner, getting the car stopped was sometimes easier said than done. Locking the rear wheels was, a bit of a problem, and the sort of speeds that this car is capable of, when things go wrong, you don't really tend to have a small accident. Trying to get the speed a little bit better judged, and while it's not quite as catastrophic as the exploded fuel tank, just got a wiggle on the landing and couldn't gather it all back up in time. Rolled the car. Once it starts rolling down here, you are going to be in a fair bit of trouble. It's a very, very narrow part of the road, and yeah, you can't do anything about it. The very, very dangerous sign would also claim another victim as we lock the rear wheels once more. Just a fraction too much brake pressure initially. Locked it, tipped the car sideways. I couldn't stop it from heading towards the sign. Yeah, you brush that sign, and chances are your car is going to be utterly, utterly destroyed. As we come into the fast section again, clipping those bumps would cause issues for the S series. Let's face it, this is designed more of as a road car than, well, technically we are driving down a road here. It is very, very bumpy, and yeah, you're doing 100 plus miles an hour through that section. You get bounced around, and the car just not quite able to deal with all of that. Already had a slight brush of a wall on this run, carrying a bit too much speed on the way into the tunnel head. In fact, quite a bit too much speed, in all honesty, that time around. Once more, the fuel tank not the sturdiest of things in this car. Surprisingly easy to have it go up in flames, although, you are hitting the wall pretty hard. When things go wrong with this, yeah, it took a little while to get the hang of it. Mostly, I say mostly, partly down to two things. First of all, was getting used to the brakes. You can see how I'm having to try and manage the brakes with the pedal telemetry that's going on. Really can't use too much in the way of brake pressure, because as soon as they lock, you are in an awful lot of trouble. And the other thing is kind of just figuring out what you can and can't get away with in this car, because it is a very, very quick accelerating vehicle, this one. Okay, it's not quite up there with the likes of the hill climb cars, but then it doesn't have the downforce that the hill climb cars have to go with it. So there are a few times where I'm just carrying way too much speed into corners, and yeah, you're just not quite all prepared for it. A decent handling car, certainly. Again, it hasn't got the downforce to go with a lot of the proper race cars, or it hasn't got the suspension, much like the rally cars, to go down here and ride the bumps as nicely. But it does actually do a pretty solid job. As we leave the tunnel hairpin, we will accelerate our way up towards the 120 mile an hour mark, getting up to 122 before we have to get on the brakes here. We're not going to be able to take 122 through this final section. You can see a fair bit of understeer going on, but still maintaining decent speed through these last S's as we run up towards the finish line, and we will cross it at 111 miles an hour. Again, for a road car, that is pretty damn good going, and it crosses it at 111 miles an hour and is perfectly well controlled. In doing that, we didn't go soaring off into the scenery. It was perfectly happy to take that final turn. Unlike a few cars, there have been some very quick cars cross the line there, but most of the time you end up taking a trip to the scenery, and then I somehow managed to stall the car while I was messing about with it and parking it up over here. But yeah, actually survived that run pretty well. A little bit of a ding on the front bumper. Up next we have an interesting contraption. This started out life as the T-Series, the big truck. However, this is, they call it the stubby T-Series. Basically, it's a shortened T-Series chassis, a horrendously powerful engine that is now mounted towards the back, and there was an option to run it with a sort of D-Series body, so I went for that, and it looks absolutely bonkers, and I love it. It'll also wheelie off the line if you get things right. I have got the wheelie bar on the back of it to try and keep some semblance of control when we launch it, because yeah, it'll do some big wheelies. It's a very, very, very crazy contraption, and that is why it is going to be going down the Canyon Rally course. The biggest problem with this vehicle is the understeer. It does not turn very well through the corners at all. Getting the front end to make a turn is not particularly easy. I'd somehow managed to, half luck and half just about judgment, bounce its way through this opening section, almost falling down the cliff. Because there is so much power, as it was starting to fall down the cliff, when I booted it, as soon as it found traction, it just wanted to launch the truck into the air. That's how we ended up sort of firing it across the road. Even with its fair bit of damage, still happy to try and wheelie. Yeah, there is horrendous amounts of power and torque going on in this when things are going well. When things aren't going well, yeah, it tends to come down with quite the crash. Surprisingly, well, I say it landed on its wheels. It's got one the front left, I think, is about the only wheel still just about intact, and that's in all of that, yeah, it wasn't so friendly on the landing of the bridge jump. The lack of turning was a considerable problem, and then at the point where I thought, right, I'm going to have to turn in extra early for this corner because I know we're going to get a mile of understeer, I actually turned in about right. Well, I say about right, I turned in a bit too soon, and we, clipped the inside, and that took it for a tumble. We could get away with running across the rocks though, which is always good. Me trying to be a bit too greedy on the exit of the corner, however, meant that I might have understeered a smidge too far wide. I thought I got it turned, thought I was safe to start putting down some power, but no, I was not in all of that one. Admittedly, it's certainly not the first vehicle, definitely won't be the last vehicle to have had that happen at the pond hairpin. It's quite an easy mistake to make. Once you've got the car mostly through the corners, you want to try and pick up speed, especially in something like this that will pick up a lot of speed. Yeah, perhaps one of the least spectacular crashes. We have a big spectacular tumble, and then we have just a not being able to slow down and bumping into a concrete wall that actually snapped all of the steering at the front. Deceptive, I think it's just the angle that hit it deceptively. Large amounts of damage in that one. The bridge jump, if you didn't get the landing perfect, things often did get a little bit wibbly. The suspension, perhaps not the greatest. The truck, all sorts of wonky weight distribution and relatively high riding body and so on. So if it started bouncing, who knew where it would end up? Sometimes you get away with it, often this is the sort of thing that would happen. There's not really a huge amount of it left at all. Again, I love how the steering wheel is about the highest point on what's left of this vehicle. This final section was also quite a terrifying prospect. Once more, it's trying to take speed through here, but not understeer too wide, and 75 miles an hour was a little bit too much in the way of speed to get through these final couple of corners. Once more, it's an impressive twist and flip from the truck, but not quite what you want to be doing in terms of getting a fast lap time. Amazingly, it was actually still working as I get the vehicle out. I might have forgotten about the ludicrous power, having kind of spun it, or sort of got it going reverse. I went to do kind of a half J-turn to get it back on the road. I just booted it without really thinking, and that, with only one wheel at the back, launched it, but twisted it while it was launching, so yeah, it promptly fell over. And then we're back to having more issues at the bridge jump. This time, just a spectacular number of rolls from the truck, and it just wouldn't stop rolling. Once it had started going, that was it, and it would tumble and fall and roll its way all into the pond. I think the exhaust stack actually managed to beat it into the pond, which is quite an impressive showing from that piece of truck. Yeah, this did take a little bit of time to get the hang of and to get it to the bottom of the course. As you can see, with the straight line speed, we're reaching up towards this turn 1. That's up to 90 miles an hour across the crest, or just before the crest, just before we got on the brakes. That's seriously quick. That's seriously quick for a vehicle of this size and of this weight and so on. The speed is certainly not the issue at all. It is just trying to get the truck through the course. The front end is about the most uncooperative thing imaginable. It will not turn into a corner, so you've got to really make sure you've got the vehicle slowed down as we come across the bridge jump. We do get a little bit of a bounce on the landing this time, though controlled enough. If you can get the speed just right as you leave the bridge jump, like about 67 miles an hour is what you want to aim for with this truck, and then you can get a nice smooth landing, a nice straight landing, and carry on. As you can see, we're understeering, still struggling with understeer around that pond hairpin. It is neater this time around, and we don't end up escaping the outside of the track. As I go to put the power down, I was wise to that. It's up to 90 miles an hour once more. Ridiculous speed for this sort of a contraption. The brakes weren't too bad either, considering there's a lot of vehicle to get slowed down from pretty damn high speeds. The brakes were doing a good job of getting the truck slowed, and now we run down this back straight up past 100 miles an hour just as we hit the inside. I thought I was a goner when I hit that. We kind of did twist a fair bit in the air, amazingly managed to get around it. The truck does have a little bit of the shakes halfway through the S-bends. We are across the grass once more, incredibly lucky not to roll it. It is another 111 miles an hour for a vehicle across the finish line, and hit a tree with such force that it actually caused the game some issues. The game detected an instability and just reset the truck. That is how hard it hit the tree. Yeah, there is a lot of momentum going on in this. It's a rather crazy vehicle. Anything that's doing wheelies is, well, looks like that and doing wheelies is pretty on the mental side. Our final vehicle is less of a crazy contraption. I mean, still pretty damn balmy. This is the RG Trophy. I love these sort of trucks, trophy trucks, stadium trucks, etc. They do make for some entertaining racing. This one, there are two versions of this. There is an off-road version and there's a race version that's got a lot more kind of road-orientated setup. Now, for this run, I went for the off-road one, or the Baja one. The reason being is the suspension actually acts quite a lot like you would expect from a super stadium truck or a trophy truck when driven quite quickly on a tarmac road, and that was quite an interesting challenge to drive that down here, because yeah, the front end is very much wanting to lift up. Suspension is incredibly soft, although that does mean you can be flat out across this jump, and the suspension will deal with the landing of it, which is, yeah, mighty impressive. That's 90 miles an hour we leave that section. The downside of the suspension like this, while it is quick across the bumps, if you try and take too much speed around a corner, you do have a tendency to roll over. Now, surprisingly, in all of that, I actually managed to get the truck out of the kind of dip before it fell in the pond. Not many vehicles have ever escaped that pond area. Somehow I did get the trophy truck out. Turn 1 and too much speed would be the end of that one. A relatively mundane roll, with the Armco kind of doing its job there and stopping you from going tumbling off into the canyon. Any of these tighter hairpins, though, could cause problems for the vehicle wanting to go for a tumble. I thought I'd kind of corrected enough from the kind of the initial two wheels, so I went to carry on turning through the corner, but I hadn't corrected enough, and yeah, it ended up sort of dragging itself over. Once more, not quite the outcome that you really want to aim for, although surprisingly it is still working. We have no steering because both of the front wheels have gone walkabouts. The engine was still working and the rear wheels still able to propel the vehicle through these high-speed S's. I always thought this might be a place that the trophy truck would struggle because of its tendency to roll over, and sure enough, it would go for a spectacular tumble. Yeah, trying to maintain corner speed in this isn't the easiest thing. I also love how the wheel very nearly manages to bounce itself back on to where it's supposed to be. even through, the tunnel hairpins, pond hairpins and so on, they're two of the slower corners on the track. Even at these, you could get into a lot of trouble trying to put the power down, or in this instance, get into a lot of trouble from missing your braking point by a tiny fraction. The brakes on this were very, very good. It got slowed down very quickly, and we weren't having big problems with locking everything up or locking the rear tyres. It was, on the most part, very, very well behaved, apart from the obvious two-wheeled. The two-wheeled antics. That one, I caught the initial roll. I stopped it from going over. The problem is, in doing that, I had to steer so violently to the left that when the truck came back down again, I hadn't stopped steering quite quick enough, and that veered off and up the mountain, and yeah, we tumbled again, losing both front wheels, but the engine pretty well protected. I don't actually think I killed the engine at any point during the driving of this truck. The way I hit stuff, it did seem to survive pretty damn well. Again, this is another vehicle with a pretty decent amount of acceleration. Once more, it's not up there with the crazy hill climb cars or the 1,800 horsepower monsters, but it is a very, very reasonable amount of acceleration as we climbed over that first corner. And again, out of these turns, we will pick up speed massively towards the bridge jump here at 70, 80 miles an hour as we leave that, and that's absolutely no problem for the suspension. The car can perfectly handle that amount of speed across a heavy jump like that, and not many, even off-road vehicles at times, can get into trouble around there. Not many cars can survive taking that sort of speed across the jump. As we leave the pond hairpin, of course, never going to be in doubt, flat out across the dirt section. Another hairpin coming up as we get on the brakes. You can see once more on the sort of pedal telemetry just how much more brake pressure I can use, how much more you can push a vehicle like this over the likes of the S series, where you having to spend most of your time being very, very careful. The acceleration does almost get the better of me as we're heading at 110 miles an hour plus through this very, very fast section. Now, this is where the whole risk versus reward comes in. How fast dare you go? There is decent amount of speed in the trophy truck, but you carry too much speed and you run the risk of going for a tumble. In the end, I went quite aggressive at 102 miles an hour across the line for the trophy. I went quite aggressive through there. I did get wheels caught on the grass. To be honest, that might have helped me in terms of stopping the vehicle from rolling over, although we couldn't get it under control having crossed the finish line. Annoyingly, the truck was actually in pretty decent condition, only really losing a bit of front bumper, and it's slightly bent. However, in the crash, the wheel and sort of suspension, that whole corner really got very, very much wedged on a tree. And nothing I did. I spent a little while trying to rescue the vehicles. I was curious to see how it might drive, if I could have pulled it off here. I went backwards, I went forwards, I wiggled the steering as much as I could in every possible way. Yeah, it wasn't going anywhere. However, on to the times, and it is a good showing from the S series. It sets a 136.4, only a tenth of a second down on the Lamborghini Countach, only a couple of tenths down on a 200BX race car. So for a four-door saloon, that is, yeah, a nice time. Goes quicker than the RG Apex. That was the little open wheeler car, quicker than the SBR4 crazy supercar. So yeah, the S series is certainly not sluggish down this course. Neither is the RG Trophy, a 138.9 from that. So it's the same time as the ETK 800 series, the big super estate car. Yeah, that's a good showing. Considering the trophy truck, you've got to be so very careful with the cornering. Yeah, 38.9. I am very, very pleased with that time. It's quicker than the Lamborghini Countach rally car, the Night Snake, the Avanster, and so on. So yeah, good showing. And finally, we find the Stubby T Series, a 150.5, much quicker time than I thought. I thought that was going to be a really, really slow time down right at the very bottom of the table, but it goes into 62nd place. It is just over a second down on the Roma. It beats the 200BX drift car. It beats the Barstow Banger, the Barstow Scepter. So yeah, it is towards the lower end of the table, but it's a truck with a crazy diesel engine that likes to wheelie. So yeah, I thought that time was going to be an awful lot worse. However, that is going to be it for this video, guys. As ever, I'll put links to all the mods that I've used in the description, so you can download them, have a go with them yourself. But that's going to be it from me. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.